Good afternoon, friends. I hope you all are having a great weekend. Today on the bench, I've got something a little different. I have a 1979 Shovelhead engine. This is out of an FLH. This was the bike that I was putting together that I changed the tins on, turned it all black. Ultimately, the engine, it didn't fail, but it failed. When it's running, it builds oil pressure and then loses oil pressure somewhere, and then the top end starts getting kind of noisy. Not sure why, so we're going to dive into, what could be the issue. Also with this engine, some of the parts that are on this are going to come off and they're going to work on another project that I have. The cases are going to go back to the original owner, I think, and then the rest of the parts I'm going to use on another engine build that I have. Anyway, I figured I'd bring you guys along on this project, tearing this thing completely down. I'm going to get this thing right down to nothing. I'm going to split the cases and everything today, hopefully. This will probably be a long video, but I'm going to walk you through the entire process of taking one of these things apart in case you've never done it. This one will not get rebuilt. I will end up using a lot of the parts off of this on my own project, and the bottom end, I believe the cases are going to stay together and probably go back to the original owner. I'm not exactly sure yet, but let's get after it. So first, I'm going to move the camera, and then that way you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. It'll be like an over-the-shoulder type view. Hopefully it is in frame and makes sense. First, I'm going to start off by taking off this oil crossover line here. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit. Probably won't take it all the way off, but I want to get it loose. It's a 1/2 inch. Next, I'm going to pull off the rear rocker box, and then we'll take off the front after that. Those are a 1/2 inch as well. One of the things I should mention, I did do this out of order. I should have taken off the push rod tube covers and then released the push rods before taking off the heads, but I'm doing a little out of order today. I'm not overly concerned about the push rods. Hopefully that didn't damage anything. I know it's not the right way to do it, but that's the way we've chosen to move forward today. So before you guys yell at me in the comments, or please yell at me in the comments, I know I did it a little backwards. Now on the rear cylinder rocker box, I need to remove this oil line. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off next. Okay, with the rocker boxes off of the heads now, one of the first things I notice is the back gasket is tin and the front gasket is actually cardboard. Now, I'm not exactly sure why they've done that. My assumption is that the back cylinder gets hotter, so they're running a different gasket to keep it sealed because of the heat, but I would think that you would run the same on both. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below if there's a difference or there should be a difference on those, because I feel like they should be the same. Next, we're going to work on removing the heads. These are a 12-sided stud on the bottom of these. I'm not sure if that's something someone's did to make it tougher. I'm not exactly sure, but I do have a 12-sided wrench. Should be a 7/16. Looks like that's right. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on getting these off. Okay, now with all of the head studs removed, it's time to take the heads off. Somebody had put some work into this thing and used ARP head studs. Pretty nice. They look to be in good shape. One of them is really burnt. One got real hot, but out of the ones that I can see, this one's obviously got a lot of oil on it, this rear one, so that's leaking pretty bad there. We'll pull this front head first, give it a little bit of an inspection. And right off the bat, one of the things I see on the exhaust side, there's gasket material in there. I don't know if you can see that. I can't really fish it out, but there's part of a gasket stuck in there, so there's paper in there. So I'm wondering if that was our issue. It could have been. A lot of buildup in there too. Let's pull this rear. Now the exhaust sides were getting real hot. I'm not sure if that's a normal thing, but you can see the exhaust sides have residual crusty oil in them, and the intake sides seem to be fairly clean. And I noticed the same thing on the rocker boxes, that the intake side had minimal oil and the exhaust side had a lot of oil. And it looks like this head gasket was failing. because there's a lot of oil right here, and you can see the oil is actually leaking out here as well. So that head gasket was gone. That was not going to work anymore. It's having issues with that, it looks like. The bores are in really good shape. I can still see cross-hatching in them. Next, let's get these cylinders taken off. Those are a 7/16 as well. This is probably, again, another ARP style stud. I'm not sure. They're a tall stud. Not sure who makes those. I don't see any markings on them just yet, but let's see if we can get these things to come out. All right, we've got the cylinders removed. The rear one, unfortunately, fought me the entire way. The back stud over here, the nut that was on it, I'm not sure what these are, what the brand is on them. It started to break apart, and I'm assuming that someone over tightened it, so unfortunately I had to cut it off. I tried to get vice grips on here, tried to heat it, and I tried to get it to remove, but it wouldn't back off, so I had to actually cut the thing with a cutoff wheel. Didn't want to do that. Unfortunately, that was the only way I was going to get this thing out. Two of the studs did back all the way out. Obviously, these ones look like they've been replaced. This one may have two. Maybe they all have. I'm not sure. These were not sunk. I don't think they're sunk all the way. Like, these are up quite a bit. And as far as I know, that little remedial ring here is supposed to sit right at the base of this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's how it's supposed to go. So that could have been part of the problem. But in taking this apart, I did notice that the pistons are a standard bore piston. So this was recently rebuilt. It does look to be in really good shape. I mean, it's going to be hard to see down the bores here, but the bores are super clean on these. Obviously, it did have a head gasket issue, so that was part of probably the oiling reason. It wasn't actually sealed up the way that it should, and that might be the only problem that it was, besides the gasket material that was in the head there. That drain was actually clogged. It had gasket material in the drain. So I'm assuming oil wasn't circulating the way it should, and maybe that was the reason why this thing wasn't properly oiling, because that was on the rear head. No, actually that was on the front head. I had to rethink myself. The front head had a gasket material in one of the drains. The rear head had a head gasket issue, which was falling apart. So that's where we're at right now. Now, I'm not sure how much oil's in the bottom of this thing, but I'm going to go ahead and remove this cone next. I'm assuming there's probably going to be a lot of oil in here, so I'm going to put another couple of these mats down to kind of collect everything. These are really great. They're super absorbent. You can kind of use them over and over again. I'm going to assume there's probably a lot of oil in the bottom of this, but I want to, keep myself prepared and safe just so I'm not making a giant mess on my desktop here. Now with my extra mats in place, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the timer cover here. Now this engine is running points, so I'm going to go ahead and get everything loosened up here so I can pull this cover. Now with the points plate and rotor all removed, I'm ready to remove this cam cover. Just as I suspected, there's a lot of oil in the bottom end, so these mats are going to come in handy. They're going to keep everything from going everywhere. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the lifter box. Another fast eddy tool here. We've got a pinion nut socket. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on and I'm going to loosen this up before I take everything apart here, just so that way I can keep this thing from rotating. One thing to keep in mind is that pinion nut is actually a reverse thread. So when you're taking that off, it's going to turn to the right. So something to keep in the back of your mind when you're taking this apart. Okay, I've got the front lifter block loose here. This one's able to be removed. I just got to get the rear one loosened up now and remove that. Now with the two lifter blocks out of the way, I can go ahead and pull the cam. Looks like this was running an Andrews AB cam. I'm anxious to see what the flywheel setup is. I think they're stock, but I'm not exactly sure. They look like they're stock. Now I'll pull the breather gear. I don't see any debris in it or any reason why it wouldn't be working right unless it wasn't timed properly. And that could be the issue. When rotating the motor, I did notice that the drive gear for the oil pump was actually working. So that's working like it should. So I'm not worried about that. Now on the oil pump drive gear, there's actually a little lock ring on here. And I'm going to attempt to get in there with a set of side pliers here and see if I can get this retaining ring off. Not a lot of working space in there, but hopefully I can get just enough room to get it to open up. All right, got the little snap ring out. These are a pain to get out of there. So that drive gear is free. I should be able to pull the oil pump now. So I'm going to work on pulling this. Now this engine is running an S&S oil pump. I wasn't sure if it was actually pumping oil properly. I felt like maybe something was wrong and maybe it wasn't working like it should be. One of the things I did notice is I pulled both of these caps, and as far as I understand, there should be 2 check balls in there, one in each hole there, and one of them has one and the other one doesn't. I don't remember which one, so I'm wondering if possibly someone took one out and they weren't supposed to. That's something I need to look into. Again, we're going to lose a lot of oil, so I'm grateful for these mats. It's going to collect everything. I should have just these 2 top studs holding everything in place, I believe. So another thing I'm noticing on the top of this oil pump here, there was a gasket across this opening right here, and it only had that small opening there, and I'm wondering if that created a volume issue. It may not have. I don't know if this is the proper gasket for this oil pump. It may not be, and that might be part of the issue. This thing may have been oiling like it should, but not to the volume it needed to have based on some of the things that were clogged. The oil drain in the cylinder head, this passage here. You know, I could be wrong, but everything is moving as it should, and I don't see any other issue as to why this wouldn't work. Now we're onto the alternator side of the engine. I'm going to go ahead and pull the rotor here. I know they are magnetic, so they do have a little bit of fight pulling off. There's another issue. The rotor here, the magnets, one of them has come off and is still stuck on here. So this may not have been charging properly, and I think that's an issue that was going on too. I believe this was having a charging system issue, and this would indicate that you could have an issue if it's not spinning properly. The stator itself doesn't look like it's in really good shape. It looks pretty baked on the backside of this. I'm not sure if that's normal or not, but it may be okay. I mean, there's lettering on it. It says, 15 USA, whatever that was. But as you can see, it's pretty well baked on. Next, we're going to work on removing this pinion shaft gear. I've got my remover all set up, and I'm just going to tighten it into place. All right, with the pinion gear removed, we need to make sure to remove the keyway that's in there, or the key that's in there as well. Also, there's going to be a shim in the back here that goes with the cam, and you don't want to lose that. I want to keep that in its same orientation too, so I'll put that right back on the cam. Next, I'm going to work on getting this key out. The keyway, of course, is going to fight you coming out just because it's been heated and cooled and heated and cooled, and the 2 metals start to meld together and, of course, cause chaos. But I was able to get it out. Now I'll be able to pull this oil pump gear off. So that's off. The spacer's off. The oil pump drive gear is out of the bottom end of the engine. Keyway is still hanging down, or the key, excuse me, not keyway. Key is still hanging down on the bottom here. That's garbage now. Obviously this gasket's no good anymore because I ripped it. And looking inside here, I don't see any issues with the engine here. I don't see a reason why this thing shouldn't have built oil pressure and had, I don't see why it should have oiling issues. The last couple things I need to do is I need to pull this retaining ring off of this side, check the other side, and then these cases are ready to be split. With that retaining clip out, it's ready to be pulled on this side. I'm going to turn this thing around and see what we're working with on the other side. Now we're to the point where we're going to split the cases. So obviously there are a series of case bolts holding this thing together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my wrench out and hold one side and use the impact on the other side to get these case bolts apart. All right, with all the case bolts out now, I'm going to attempt to separate the cases, and I'm going to remove the studs off of this side. And I'll show you a little trick that I'm trying. Not sure if it's going to work yet. I'm hoping it does. All right, with both of the left side studs out, I'm going to tap on this front ear here with a rubber mallet. It looks like path of least resistance is going to be tapping on the right side, so I'm going to actually feed this stud back into place, and I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. Well, friends, there we are. A set of bare engine cases. A couple of things that I've discovered along the way. These cases are actually replacement cases. They're a 1984 set of cases. Part number is, I can't remember. Part number is 24563-84E, and they are a matched set of cases. So their numbers matching are belly matched cases. So they were sold as a pair. I'm assuming that the 1979 at some point in time blew up and the cases were replaced. I know that Harley Davidson offered that as a warranty, I think. I'm not sure what they called it back in the day, where if your cases had problems or your engine blew up or whatnot, they would actually send you a new set of engine cases with the VIN number in it. And this one actually does have the 79 VIN etched in this side here, where it should have been here. So these are new cases. I kind of wondered, because they are so nice, they're in really good shape. The casting's a little bit different. Kind of neat. So what do I think when it comes to why this thing wasn't oiling properly? Well, I've got a couple of ideas. I noticed that this oil passage here was full of dirt, like absolutely filled full of dirt. And the gasket was pretty much gone here, so that probably wasn't helping the situation. The rear cylinder's head gasket was blown, and it was blown right by that oil passage. So it was bleeding oil out of there as well. And then lastly, on that front cylinder head, on one of the drains, the oil passage there, that drain was plugged up, or not really plugged up, but it had gasket material laying in it. So I'm assuming because of that, oil wasn't flowing properly. It wasn't, with all of these things, it wasn't flowing entirely the way that it should. So that's my assumption on why this thing wasn't oiling properly. Everything else looked good. Oil pump spun nice. There was actually that one passage that was covered on the oil pump as well. I believe that's the wrong inner gasket for that pump particularly. That looks like a stock Shovelhead gasket, where this is an S&S oil pump, and I'm assuming somebody didn't buy the right gasket for that too. So that's probably another thing that didn't help this whole situation. As far as parts go, what am I doing next? Well, some of you may remember that chopper build that I've had for a long time. That bottom end is complete, and I have a title for that. So that's going to actually end up with these parts here. This bottom end, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with it just yet. It may end up for sale. It may go back to the original bike, so that way he has numbers matching engine and frame and title. He does have a hot rod engine that's going to go into that bike, so that's the direction that that one's going next. But a lot of these parts are going to get reused, so I'm planning on putting them onto that other Shovelhead since I already have the numbers that match that. I know, kind of a mess, but sometimes that's how it goes, robbing some parts from good projects or good bikes to build another bike to make it better, or, things that aren't being utilized. Sometimes it makes sense to, put them on things that can be utilized. I had this engine up for sale for a long time, and I didn't have any bites on it. Unfortunately, everybody wanted to pay nothing for it. They wanted to trade you their broken garbage, and I've got enough broken garbage of my own, so I opted to take this thing apart. Well, friends, I know it's kind of a long video, a long drawn-out process, and some of it's probably a little boring, but hopefully this gave you some insight as to, some of the issues you could run into with your Shovelhead and oiling, or how to take one apart. You may have never seen how these things come apart or what's entailed with it, and now you've kind of seen the process a little bit. I know I'm not showing everything, and a lot of that's been edited out because, watching me turn a wrench for 4 hours, that's about how long it took to break this whole thing down, was 4 hours. The left case half here, I had to press the flywheel assembly out of it. So I had to bring it over the press, set it up on some blocks, and I had to press that out. So that's still laying on the press itself. I will take those flywheels apart. They are a stock set of 80-inch flywheels, and I'll be doing whatever with them. I don't even know yet, but I know that the sprocket shaft, the threads on that were chewed up really bad. So that's shot. That'll have to be replaced. So in its entirety together, it's not good. Anyway, I've talked enough today. I kind of rambled for a long time. I appreciate you guys following along. If you like the video, give it a like, hit that thumbs up button. I really appreciate that feedback. Of course, continue to comment on what's going on here. If you see things that I'm doing right or wrong, please let me know. I appreciate that type of feedback. I know some of these videos have gotten a ton of engagement, and I've had a lot of correspondence back and forth, and that's been fantastic. I love it. So thank you for that. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. I know I've got a lot of projects and I'm kind of all over the place, but as I'm waiting on parts to come in or money to come in to fund these things, I can work on the things that I have, and sometimes the videos will skip around like that, so I apologize. I got a little ADD, so that doesn't help me either. That keeps me kind of all over the place as well, but hopefully it makes sense a little bit. I try to keep these videos together in different series and have them uploaded to YouTube that way as well. But anyway, guys, thanks so much. I appreciate you all sticking to the end of the video. We'll catch you next time.